everybody. Welcome to the Parent Cafe podcast. I'm Sarah,
I'm Allie.
and today with us we have
Emma.
Emma.
Hi,
Emma,
Emma.
yeah, thank you for coming. Emma runs Elements Forest School here in Edson. So we are so excited to learn some more about forest school and NaturePlay. What is forest school? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about you and your journey to get to where you are now?
Yes, so Forest School is a predominantly outdoor educational approach that follows a child-based and an inquiry-driven pedagogy. Um, so interestingly enough, actually, I found out about Forest School from a podcast.
Oh.
I feel like, yeah, we've come like the full 360 now.
That's crazy.
That is.
Yeah, I was just listening to one, and a mom was talking about how her kids went to forest school and just how cool it was and how beneficial it was. Yeah, she was a biomechanist, and she really liked just more the physical aspect of the kids being outside and not sitting all day. So I started researching it and came across the Child in Nature Alliance of Canada, and yeah, I signed up for the first available course that I was able to take, which was actually in Newfoundland. So I did that maybe 3 years ago now. Went to Newfoundland for a week and took the practicum course, and then did a whole bunch of stuff online and opened up the school.
So why is it in Newfoundland?
They do it all over Canada. So that was just yeah, there was one in BC as well. However, I figured I might never go to Newfoundland again. So
That's so true. Why not just use the
Yeah.
opportunity?
Were you
Yeah.
living in Edson at the time before going to Newfoundland?
Yes, I
Oh,
was.
okay. Cool.
That's so cool. I've never been to Newfoundland. I would love to go.
I haven't either.
It was really cool and very pretty. It was
Yeah.
really nice to explore and yeah, hang out in their forests and yeah.
Did you find their nature a lot different than ours?
Yes and no, a lot of similarities. We did a cookout by the ocean as one of our cooking over the fire was one of the objectives we did. And we did that at the beach, and everyone who lived there, their families came, and it was such a cool experience. So that was definitely different, but being in the forest was similar, a bit wetter and a different kind of cold, but yeah.
It is very cool. So could you tell us just what is forest school? What do you do?
Well, that depends on the students typically because it's child led.
Okay.
So it's honestly whatever they want to do, I just do my best to support them. Usually they come to my place and we hang out in the woods. Some kids want to go for walks right away and explore, and so we can do that. And some kids want to hang out and kind of get settled a bit. There's lots of, balancing on logs and playing in puddles or playing in the snow. The weather is a huge factor. Kids typically love anything novel. So if there's, crunchy leaves to jump in, yeah.
Who doesn't love a crunchy leaf?
Puddles.
Right? Even just walking, even as an adult, I'm oh, crunchy leaf, gotta step on that.
Crunchy leaf and then that super thin ice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you gotta
Very
break
satisfying.
it. Just that sensory.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's worse though? When you think it's a crunchy leaf and it's not.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty upsetting.
It's upsetting.
I actually wonder too. So if it's child led and then forest school though itself, has that progressed to older ages, or is it mostly for early childhood?
It's definitely geared more towards that preschool age. Although this year with a lot of people homeschooling, I've had a lot of older kids, including some high school kids who are really interested in it. So that's been really different, but really cool because the things that you learn vary so greatly that really any age can do it.
For a child older, would it be a full-time school though, if they chose to do that, would they still follow a curriculum? Like, how does that work for them?
I think that might be more like unschooling if they did it full
Ah,
time.
Mm.
okay.
And it would just be geared off whatever they want to learn. Like there's so much you could do for science outdoors.
Mhm.
That yeah, I think it would just depend.
Can you talk just briefly about unschooling? Because I've heard of unschooling, but I don't know that everyone knows what that is.
Yeah.
So unschooling is kind of just getting rid of all the preconceived notions of what school and I guess like a normal education would be. And then more so following the kids' rhythm and routines. So, maybe they learn first thing in the morning, maybe they learn in the afternoon, maybe they need to move to learn, whatever it is, but just kind of taking everything else out and then more so basing it off the kid is what I gather unschooling is. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of different definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have heard it's more based around like like kind of like nature play and like nature school, forest school, unschooling to like learn through experiences rather through the
Mhm.
textbook.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
everyday life or even indoors, if your parents are, cleaning the house, you also
Right.
learn to clean the house and
Yeah.
just
Like
different
life
things.
skills.
Yeah.
They're paying bills and then you learn how to pay bills and not
Mm.
get slapped in the face when you're 20 something going, "Oh, I have to pay a bill." What?
How do I do that?
How do I balance a checkbook?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I
Exactly.
think there's definitely some cool benefits, and I would love to learn more about unschooling too.
Mhm.
I've only, like touched on the subject with people that have brought it to my attention. So it's
Mhm.
kind of cool that it relates to forest school in a way as well.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
forest school would be considered unschooling or not really?
I think yes and no, like in a sense. I think unschooling would just be everything. So I think for school could fit in there.
Mm,
Okay.
that
Just
fair
for
enough.
other
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
That's very cool. Um, so what are the benefits for some
Well,
kids to go?
so the most basic benefits that I think most people know about with just going outside would be that it improves mood and behavior,
Mhm.
um, improves your vision. Usually, kids sleep better, reduces stress. There's more feel good hormones, better immune system. There's a calming effect, and then strength and coordination. But then with the actual kind of more educational approach to it, I find that because it's child led, it fosters curiosity and a sense of exploration. It actually ends up empowering the child.
Mm.
Um, and so when they're empowered, they kind of go into that zone of proximal development. And then it builds on their intrinsic motivation to actually continue learning and to learn the things that they're interested in. And it also helps them retain that information better than, say they're just sitting in school,
Yeah.
just showing up to show up. Um, I find that's a huge benefit. It also fosters their physical development, social, emotional development, and their cognitive development. And so that kind of encompasses a wide range of
Mhm.
things like their fine and gross motor skills, spatial awareness, comfort zones, managing their emotions and empathy, self esteem, critical thinking, decision making, and emotional intelligence is also huge.
So everything.
Yeah,
I
more or less.
Yeah.
so that seems to me like children then who are a part of like a forest school nature based like learning um that would kind of align with like the more senses you're using while you're learning something new, the better you are at retaining that information. Like if you can touch, like, so that's why some people like hands-on learning is a lot more beneficial because you actually like get a feel for what you're doing and you understand it faster than just reading it out of a textbook or like reading instructions. But then I guess like, would you throw other information into forest school too? Like, or is it really actually child led? Like you're only learning about what the children want to learn about, or do you facilitate other information too?
Yeah, so I try to keep as many resources on hand. So we have a little clubhouse and it's full of books and loose parts and toys and crafts. so that if they have a question, you know, say about birds, and I don't know off the top of my head, it's like, well, I don't know, but let's go find out together. We can pull out a book, we can look it up, we can research it. Worst case, we can even walk to the library if we really need to and figure it out.
Okay.
And then it kind of teaches them how to figure things out on their own. Or if, yeah, they really just like have no idea what to do, it's a brand new concept, then I can kind of, you know, maybe lay some loose parts out and start doing something with them to just kind of get the ball rolling. Yeah.
So if they were interested in, say, bears for like 3 weeks, would you just kind of focus on bears, or are you going to kind of expand their learning and kind of like, you can still talk about bears, but we're also going to talk about hibernation and like, and then trail into other things? Like, does that make sense as a
Yeah.
question?
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I think there's enough about bears that you definitely learn about in 2 weeks, but obviously hibernation would be a part of that.
Mhm.
Animal tracks, and then that might lead to like, oh, that's not a bear track. What, you know, what
Mhm.
animal track is that? And I think usually it kind of just trickles down into other things naturally.
Do you ever find yourself going from like a conversation about a bear to like a different animal track to like just things that are completely off topic? Like I just
An
wonder.
airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids usually jump around quite a bit with their especially outside. There's lots going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
this
how
is,
do you
yeah, this
focus
is a lot
that?
harder. Yeah.
Or do you just like totally go with the flow and like just, yep, that's an airplane, let's talk about airplanes. Yep, that's a bear track, let's talk about bear. Like, do you just kind of go with them, or is
I
it?
try to go with them. I
Yeah.
think my son he's very much like that, where it's like you're going to cover 10 huge concepts in like 10 minutes. And so I don't know how much of it he retains when it's, yeah, like all of a sudden this to that. And it could be anything. I find like when we go for walks outside, it doesn't have to be nature related. He'll
Right.
just ask these really big, like theoretical questions, and we'll just have these big discussions about it. But we definitely touch on a lot of huge concepts in no time at all.
Yeah, I think like just working with kids, I've noticed like even if you touch on it, like weeks later, they'll bring it back up and like they'll remember that tiny little bit of information that you said. And then that's when they expand on the topic. So it's like, okay, I'm just curious now, but like then later on maybe something reminds me and it's like,
Yeah.
boom.
They're kind of holding on to it until they're ready to learn, basically, is what it
Yeah.
feels like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find then, like, I feel like people would think that forest school would be you're learning only about nature. But as you say, like, you're going for a walk and other, like, really deep philosophical conversations could come up. So that's really untrue, like, that it would just be about nature. So for people who like have never heard of forest school or are like interested, but then maybe have a bit of like, because I myself, like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, but like there's other basics that I learned in like normal school. That would you learn them in forest school? Like you would learn counting, obviously, and like your numbers and things like that, because you're probably like going to transition. Like if they're like, oh, a bird, how many can you find? Let's like count all the birds. Do you find that people are often confused, like they don't believe that you would touch on everything that's kind of like that base important information? Do you ever find
Like
that?
the maths and like the
Yeah.
like those core subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how like old that would go into for kids ages, but I know, yeah, when they're like preschool, kindergarten, those early grades, you can easily touch on everything.
Right.
We read a lot of books, we do a lot of crafts, and that kind of touches on a lot of different subjects. And then, yeah, as you said, it's super easy to do math outside. We've also made like bark money, and
Ooh.
things like that. So it really, yeah, just depends. And it depends like what the kids' interests are. If they want to do math, there's a lot of science with nature, a lot of history as well, if you're learning about the land and
Right.
like to be here. So it's definitely like you're going to learn some different things than you will in school. For the early grades, I think it touches on everything they need to know. but I have a background in working with people with disabilities for the last 10 years. And I have found that having that physical regulation and emotional regulation is the foundation that anyone needs to learn anything. So even if, say, they do forest school in the morning, and then I have some kids who will do, like a normal preschool in the afternoon, and it just helps them, they're calm, they're settled, they can like have a better input of all the information they're given. And yeah, they're just a bit easier to manage, I think, too, especially for behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find, because like nowadays a lot of the children are lacking like that emotional maturity. I don't want to say lacking it, but that's the skill that's always kind of behind for a lot of children. Do you find nature school or forest school helps with that emotional maturity? And how would it do that?
So emotional intelligence, which I like briefly touched on, is huge. And some people even say that having more emotional intelligence, you're more likely to get a really high-end job versus if you have all the actual intelligence and the book skills and know-how. It's more so that people skills and that confidence and that like charisma, I guess, at the end of the day. And that they'll get from having the confidence and learning what they want to learn and having those skills to go out and kind of figure it out themselves.
Do problem solving and stuff
Yes.
like that. And you definitely learn that. Like I remember like when I was a kid, we would go to my babysitter's and she was just like, see you at lunchtime. Like just go out, just do whatever you want. And then so we would just go into the forest and we would build forts and like we'd problem solve together. Like, okay, well we want that up into the tree. How are we gonna get that? Like we would just sit there, we'll just scrounge for things and we just problem solved. And I think that really helped my
Yeah.
problem solving skills in the long run because I'm like, I look at a situation and then I can figure it out. Right. And then I was on my own. Well, with my siblings and her kids. But like you just kind of work together, right? So like it's teamwork and stuff like that. So with having an instructor help guide you would definitely be helpful too.
Yeah, and mixed ages too, because I'm assuming you weren't the only person like that age going out there to do it. But when you have older kids kind of showing you what they know, and then younger kids that you're a role model for, that also makes a huge difference, I think, for a child's upbringing.
Yeah.
Kind of the same is true for sibling. Like if you have like a few siblings in different ages and you kind of all grow up and learn and play together, you're learning from each other. Like there's this 7-year gap between myself and my younger brother, and everything he knows is because of me. So my mom did nothing in that one.
Like I raised that boy.
I raised him. No, but I remember like because of our age difference, I was learning multiplication in school and he was maybe like 3.5, 4, and I was teaching him multiplication because I wanted to play with him. And I was like, okay, we'll play school. And then I would teach him multiplication and he knew it at 4. Like
Is this the one who's like a mathematician
he's
now?
like, he's in school to be an actuary. So he's extremely intelligent, but I'm not good at math at all. And I like
so he's like figuring out the calculations and being like, well, that's wrong. So
yeah, like he was helping me with my like grade 10 math homework when he was in grade 3.
Oh my god.
Because it's just his like logic
Mm.
was just so like advanced. He was like, he's just a pure genius. But we would always like play outside often. My parents took us outside all the time. All of my like earliest memories are doing things in nature and like learning about something. Like we lived in Coquitlam, so we would like go to the beaches and like pick crabs and like lift up rocks, and we knew that that's where like crabs hide. So there have been times where like I've been to rocky beaches and I'm like lifting up some rocks and I have friends that are like, what are you doing? And I'm like,
looking for crabs.
Looking for crabs, of course. This is where they hide. Like, how do you not know that? And that's like those things that you learn that you only learn through something like a forest school or NaturePlay. Like that's the only place you're going to learn it. Nobody in school opens a textbook and goes, so when you go to a rocky beach, you will find crabs underneath the rocks and you can lure them using cheese. Like they don't, like but I just find there are so many things that you retain better, like when you attach them to nature, like the experience is just better.
It's that experience. Do
Yeah.
you find, Emma, that from when you were a child, and maybe Allie too, like that kids now have changed a lot, like with those experiences? Like, are they not getting them? Like, you know, like I know like technology, I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw that out there.
The stats are really upsetting as
Yeah.
far as that goes. A lot of people are worried that if, like you said, like when your babysitter would put you outside and not watch you, I mean, that's really taboo now.
Yeah.
Kids
Mhm.
can't be
Yeah.
left unattended. And so if parents have stuff to do and they can't be with their kids 24/7 and follow them around, then it seems safer to let them sit inside on a screen all day, even
Mm-mm.
though we all know that being on a screen is not healthy and
Right.
there are predators and it's also not safe.
Right.
So yeah, people are so worried that, you know, their kids will get abducted or they'll get hurt, and people don't really want to.
Honestly, like the perceived danger of that is only higher because of social media and the way that we can share that news. Like the amount
Exactly.
of abduction is probably the same. Like,
I
you
actually,
know,
when I was in school, I learned it was actually a lot less than it
lower.
used to
Okay.
be,
So
way
it's
lower.
lower now,
But it's
but
because the
right.
media it's so
It's in our
fast and
face.
out there. It's
Yeah.
in, yep, that
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
And I
scary.
think that's kind of scary too scary for parenting, I guess. Like
Mhm.
in the generation that are kind of had kids, so maybe now they have like 8-ish year olds to
Yeah.
younger. There's this like split, like there's a lot of us that are, forgive me for using this word, we are woke, and like we see that, like we remember playing outside and not fearing being abducted, so like why should that be a fear we have? And then there's like this other half that is exactly like what Emma you're describing, you know, it's safer if I just give them my tablet, they can just watch for an hour while I fold laundry instead of going outside in the yard. And I see like a shift, like I'm hoping we're turning back into that more like, you know, old school approach. If like I hate to say that because it should
Yeah.
never have changed, but to the way that like our parents parented us where we were outside getting hurt, scratched up, like eating dirt, um, you know, scraping bird poo off the playground and tasting it because who wouldn't
What's
want to
it
try
taste like?
that? Yeah. Like, so I love seeing the shift, but it's so
Mhm.
sad to me too. Like there was that like missed number of people that like kind of got
Yeah.
lost in that technology. So it's good to see programs like yours,
Mhm.
especially in like a small town. Like you
Yeah.
know, that's super cool too.
I remember when Emma like first came to me telling me about nature school, and I'm like, I think I was pregnant or not even pregnant. I'm like, I'm gonna sign my child up. And I'm like, I can't wait. I'm so excited. She's like, they have to be 3. And I'm like, okay, well,
I
keep
remember
going.
this actually.
Yeah.
And I still want to. And I was actually thinking about that this morning. I'm like, I can't wait until Abby's 3 so she can go to nature school because I know
Mhm.
she'll just love it.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
And you know she'll learn so much.
I
Like,
do like,
because those are the things she'll remember. Like
yeah.
it'll just be, you know, you see it like, oh yeah, we watched a duck today and all the duck babies were following the big duck. And why were they
Mhm.
doing that? And then you like learn all these things. And that's where like kids come home and they're just chatterboxes because the things that they learned actually were like right in front of them and interesting.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
niece went to forest school, and she would just come home and like she's so smart, but I also like she'd be exhausted. Like
Oh,
that's the difference. Like, but like mentally and like physically exhausted, right? Like in a good way. Like she was out there, she was playing, she was involved, like she was like learning so much instead of like sitting at a desk or in a spot
mhm.
where it's just like they have to move. Like maybe they're getting the intellectual part, but they're not getting that physical as much. So like being tired in a good way, but it's also good for
Mhm.
parents.
Yeah.
It's like they go to sleep and they sleep hard, right?
Emma, I have a question about like seasons for forest school.
Mm.
So, do you follow like the school calendar or is forest school all year long, anytime? Like, how does it work seasonally?
So I like to do one semester that goes from like September, October, November, And then the winter, I mean, if we lived somewhere else, it might be different. But, like the weather we had a couple weeks ago was not very fun. So I usually will take the winter off.
Okay.
Because I find, like if me and my kids want to be outside, usually we want to like be moving. So we end up going cross country skiing and snowboarding and skating and things that we don't always do at forest school with other kids. And then, we reopen in April, May, and June. And then summer would be more like drop in and just kind of see how life goes, I guess.
Summer would be more like campy, like
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things like that, because everyone's life is a bit more kind of up in
Yes.
the air in summer, and people take vacation and stuff like that. But I do find that, spring and fall, like those shoulder seasons where the weather is warm enough that kids can be outside, and whether they're moving or not, they're not too cold and they're still having fun, because it should be a positive experience. If kids are miserable outside, they're not going to want to do it. They're not going to come back.
Do you find a lot of parents like they worry that their child's not, I don't want to say not have fun, but like that, like they're going to get too cold, like they're going to be like, how do you stop that? How do you stop that worry for parents?
I haven't gotten it too much. Most parents, especially when their kids come often, are really, really good at bringing extra layers, or layering them quite a bit, and then we can kind of take off layers if we need. And I also keep in probably like sizes for like a 3-year-old to an 8-year-old, like fleecy clothes, extra socks, mitts, hats, winter coats, and waterproof gear. So we just call it the gear bank. And then if kids do get wet or cold and they don't have anything else, there is an option. They're not just going to be sitting there wet. I used to have a kid who was who had a sensory processing disorder, and he never like didn't get wet. Like even if it was sunny and hot out, he would like find water. Like he would stick his face in the snow, he would lay down in puddles, and he loved it. Like he was so happy. So I'd let him do it. I'd give him a little bit of time, and it's like, Kate, let's go change. Like you need to be dry and warm now. And he was totally fine with it. But yeah, and some kids love that some parents don't love it, and they don't want their kids to get wet, right?
Right.
So then kids are like, what? Like, I can get muddy, I can get wet? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think if parents are signing up for forest school, they're definitely like okay with it, but it's like those parents, it should be, I would hope so. But it's those parents that are like, oh, like, no, like, don't get them with paint. Like, I don't want any dirt on them.
Yeah.
So it's like, those are the ones you have to kind of get in there and
I've
be
had
like,
a few
it's
of those
fine.
parents specifically sign their kids up just because they're like, I'm not outdoorsy. Can you make my kid outdoorsy? And I don't like mess. So can you deal with that?
They
That's
kind of
awesome.
they have to break out of that too, though, right?
Yeah.
Because what we've learned, like in our previous podcast too, like children mirror. So whether like they'll go to forest school, but they're coming home to like sterile, no mud, so it's not encouraged after they're done being encouraged all day. Like that can't be a positive experience for the kids either, really.
I think too, though, like having your child like wanting to be outside and stuff, you want to make them happy. So you're going to go into that. It might take a little bit longer to like break those habits, but I would hope that you can be like, okay, well, yes, you want to go for a walk and play in nature. Like, okay, let's go. Maybe mom will get dirty or something like that today. Like, I would hope that it would break the parents a little bit.
I think having
extent.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think having options like forest school is probably opening like doors for people to realize that it's really not that bad if like a kid tromps into the house with some mud on the floor. Like that initial reaction of like, oh no, get out, like you're dirty, like that's got to be thrown out eventually. Like, I mean, kids are messy. Like they just are like naturally so messy.
Or just teach them how to like, okay, you get in the house and you strip off. Like it's okay to be messy, but just strip down.
Right.
Be naked. I don't care.
Leave your mud in the foyer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Have a designated spot. And you can definitely set your house up that way if you can, I guess. But
do you have like set lunch hours and like snack times during forest school, and like, do the kids cook their own stuff? Like, how does that work?
So there's no set lunch times. Being child-led, kids eat when they want to eat. Some kids like graze all day, and some kids pretty much never eat during forest school. Like they're just busy and they'll eat their whole lunch on the car ride home. So it's totally up to them, but I just always like they know where their stuff is, and it's like, yeah, if you're hungry, you're hungry. Like you just, it just they get pretty self-sufficient with it. And then as far as cooking, we've done a couple campfires that it depends on the kids. When it's, lots of really little kids and they need a lot of supervision, then of course safety is a concern. But if they're interested in cooking, we've made bannock before and cooked up berries, and I have apple trees. So the kids like to roast apples sometimes.
We kind of touched on this, but maybe you could expand a little bit more. What ages is forest school and play most appropriate and beneficial for? Like, I think you said play, like you do the play school, but is it good for all ages?
Yeah, so I think there's something beneficial about young kids getting started with it and just having that as the norm of going outside and liking it. I find when kids kind of get into certain habits or, when it's out of their comfort zone, it's a bit trickier. But I think it's beneficial for all ages. Like I said, I've had high schoolers be super interested and they want to learn more, especially if they know what they want to do. So I had a boy, he wants to be a conservation officer, but he really wants to learn how to identify plants. So he's like, can you, help me find resources and teach me how to go out in nature and identify these plants? And he was very interested and very active. And so that was really cool. Just having, it was still led by him. Yeah, very, very different from a preschooler who, might have a 5-second attention span with cool, what's that? Awesome. Go for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That's so cool. I'm so interested in the high school point of view and how to incorporate that, because that is to just have they don't have that in school. You can teach it in a textbook all you want, but to actually go out and find it and see it in its natural habitat, that. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, the more biology aspect of it.
Yeah. I definitely too, I mean, thinking back to high school, if you ever went on field trips where you were visiting an old not an army base, but what were they called? The forts? In Ontario, they had lots of those Fort Erie, and you'd have the wooden forts, and then they'd have the cannons and the people dressed up, or heritage villages. Whenever you go to places like that, I feel like I learned way more.
100%.
Just exploring a place like that versus going back and reading a chapter in the textbook. So I could see that though, because still going back to the experience being way more worth it than reading about it. Anybody can read about something, but to actually try it or see it with your own eyes, I feel has just a better impact.
And more memorable.
Aesthetic learner, I think, too.
Yeah, that could be me fully. I learned through experiences.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it does depend on the person.
Yeah. If I'm super interested in something, I could read about it, but I find if I'm actually doing something, I'll instantly remember how to do it for the next time.
Yeah, more hands-on learning. And I think a lot of people are that way. So even in high school and stuff, when you get to actually go out and do the work I don't know what they were called. Yeah, work experience things, those are so beneficial, and I remember those so much. So much more, and
I remember making muffins and putting them in the oven, and then 20 minutes later they were still raw because I didn't even turn on the oven. And I failed the muffin task. So it haunts me to this day.
What class was this?
It was home ec or something. Yeah. Now I make really good muffins though.
Because you turn the oven on.
Turn it on.
Yeah.
Step 1.
Yes. I was going to ask you, Emma, I think I wrote this in my questions too, but is there a history of forest school and kind of how it came to be and what's made it prevalent now, or how it's
Has
like
it
up
been
and coming?
going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. So I think forest school like is probably the most basic form of teaching your kids at the end of the day. Like Aboriginal people have been doing it on this land for millennia. Um, but it more formally, I guess, started in Europe in about 1950, more so in like I think Norway and Denmark. And then it moved its way through like China, New Zealand, Australia, the US. And the first school, I think, opened up in like 2008 in Canada. So it's interesting because it is like newer and a lot of people don't know what it is, but it's also incredibly old and incredibly basic.
I do
Yeah.
remember hearing about a forest school in Norway. I feel like there was a documentary on it, and I just remember them having like a big teepee like setup where they did kind of like you say that would be like the clubhouse. And the kids were like wet all the time in this documentary. And they were
Yes.
all just
I
like,
think I've seen this
yeah,
one.
they're like by the ocean.
Yes,
Is
yes.
where,
Yes.
yeah.
I need to look this up.
I'll try and find it. I can't think. Like I think it was
I
like
don't remember. I saw it in
CBC.
school.
It was like CBC
Yeah.
or BBC. I think I also saw it in university during like
Yeah.
a child development course or something.
Yeah.
But it was like in Norway on a beach, like teepee setup, and they were just wet, like the kids soaked head to toe, and they had like their rubber suits on, like going down to the beach, and they were cooking like also. And just I think though age wise they were like 5, 6.
Yeah,
So
I'd say like between like 4 to 6.
yeah. So I think it was like a kindergarten program, I believe, because like
And they were like sleeping outside and
Mhm.
everything. Yeah, like
Everything.
they had naps.
Yeah. And it didn't look warm.
No,
Like,
oh no,
at
it was
all.
definitely not because they had a
Yeah.
campfire in the teepee and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I'll try and find it and I'll send it to you. 'cause
It's
I'm
so
curious.
good. I love
yeah,
that
it's
one.
crazy. But they had like, so I guess it was a place, it was Norway, so somewhere where they've been doing it for a very long time. And so it was like 3 instructors, because I believe, like if I remember right, and then like a larger group of kids, and just kind of it was almost like it was the school, because I don't know that they were all the same age. I think they were all like different ages learning the
Like a
same
mixed
things,
group.
and then like learning the same things in different ways. So like you say, some kids, picked up sticks and they were kind of just interested in like rubbing them together. Like maybe they were talking about like bark and textures and things like that. And then the older kids were like building things with the sticks to like make structures. And then theirs was a little bit more like science and architecture. And so, I mean, like seeing things like that, and the kids were so happy too. So it's like, parents are dropping them off like in a vehicle. It wasn't like these were like nomads. Like this was like, here you go, off you go to nature with you. And like, then they were there for all day. So I just really love that this is something that exists here in Edson, because I think it's a huge like benefit for parents to have this kind of option and see like what it could do for their kids. But then also seeing it growing like today in kind of, I want to say like mainstream, like modern time, even though like you say it's been around, people just don't really know about it. It's just kind of cool to see that it's stuck around and it's coming back, or making a comeback, I guess. Like,
Yes,
do
I
you
totally agree.
yeah, did you ever like imagine doing this? Like, did it kind of like surprise you?
To be honest, if I didn't have kids, I probably wouldn't do this. I think the biggest reason was, so yeah, when I found out about forest schools and that they were a thing, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I was like, yeah, I want my kids to go to forest school. And obviously there was no forest school in Edson. I'm not going to drive to Edmonton every day. Actually, even I think then there wasn't any in Edmonton. I think only Calgary. Wow. So I was like, well, I guess I just have to open up my own.
Yes, that's a very normal response that all of us have.
Not just, I'll just take them to regular school.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
just
if I
open it
could send
myself.
them to someone else's forest school, I totally would have done that.
Yeah.
My son is very busy. He's a kinesthetic learner. He
Mhm.
needs to move. And so yeah, I was like, well, I think, yeah, this might be the best option for him. And
Yeah. It
yeah,
definitely sounds like it was in your journey. You
Mm.
just had no idea it was
Yeah.
coming.
so
It
yeah,
Yeah.
was meant to be for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I went to school, like just on kind of alleys, like I obviously watched that video in school, but we also got to go to an actual like elementary school that practiced
Mm.
forest school as well. So what like their students like they went and sat at their desks and regular, but they also had the opportunity to go out and they had a huge like forest behind them. They had a big pond, so they would take their work out there. They would do it out there, and then like they would child led, like they would follow it. At recess, they were allowed to go into the forest
Mm.
and bring like stuff into the yard to play with, to build forts and stuff like that. It was like so amazing to see it actually like in a school environment,
Mhm.
because like it's great like to for play school and stuff to be like out of someone's house or like just around, but like in an actual school environment to see like that it can be brought in and so naturally. Like obviously their school was in like surrounded by forest, so it was a
Mhm.
great area. So like in the middle of a town doesn't work, but like to have that opportunity. Like I know I'm just trying to think like back to my elementary school, we had like 3 trees and kids were always at those 3 trees. Like
Yeah.
that's where they like gravitated towards.
It was
So
the
like
tree.
obviously, yeah, right? Like that's my tree, you
That
can't be
sounds
there.
right. Yep.
Right?
I feel like we went to the same school for some reason, but we didn't.
We did not. But like you'd fight over that those pieces of nature that were
Mhm.
there. So like to have that opportunity to bring it right into school, like I just it was amazing to
Mhm.
see.
I think that you're right, but you saying the pond thing really just makes me think of my mom. So now I'm like, did you go to my mom's school? But
No.
my mom's a kindergarten teacher in a French immersion school in Hamilton, Ontario, and it's like in the city. So they're like surrounded by just like buildings and roads.
Yeah.
But in their school like yard, there's a pond that's like ways away. It's like not in the school property anymore. My mom had to like appeal to the school board to get permission to take her kindergartners to this pond to do like nature play, and had to get like written permission, and their biggest concern was like safety of like a child going missing or falling in the pond. And my mom was like, who cares if they fall in the pond? Like,
Then
then
they
they'll
get
dry
close.
off. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it'll be okay. The pond is like this deep and I'll walk in and grab them. Like it was just one of those things, the same thing we kind of mentioned earlier, where that like perceived safety of like letting your kid just go outside and explore something. So obviously it's becoming apparent to people that like this is necessary. Do you ever take your program and like showcase like what you do like in the schools and get people on board, or how does that like how does it work for you in like a small town? Is it more like private? I don't know, is it daycare? I don't know too much about it.
It's funny you say that. My mom's also, well, she was, I guess, for years a French immersion kindergarten
Oh,
teacher.
cool.
Small world. But I know a lot of teachers in St. Albert because of her, and all the teachers knew me growing up as well, which was very fun.
That's
But I've
cool.
actually been approached about doing teacher workshops more so in the city because I think they're super curious and they want
Yeah.
to learn more about it. So it's definitely something that I'm open to doing and interested in because
Mhm.
you could reach so many more kids going to a school setting instead of just having, a handful of kids. You can have, that 20 or 30 classroom and, power through all the classrooms, or teach the
Right.
teachers how to even just take them out for small bits. Like I remember my school was right by a river, and going down to the river and collecting tadpoles and
Mhm.
just like river water. I don't actually know why we did it. Cause yeah, we like had a jug of river water that sat in our class for like weeks, and we just kind of watched how gross it got. Which in hindsight was kind of weird, but I'm sure, yeah, we learned a lot, I guess, about
Just
the water.
waiting for something to hatch.
Yeah.
Like, might have caught
But like
something.
those, that's what you remember in school, right?
Yeah.
Like those
Yeah.
weird things that was probably like the class was like, yeah, let's do this because we
Yeah.
found river water.
Yeah, it was super fun walking down and carrying buckets of water back to our classroom.
I'm curious now, speaking of weird, what is the weirdest, or I guess like
Oh,
the definition of weird, but like it's probably not weird because we're learning things, but what would be like the weirdest thing that a child during like forest school came across that you had to like learn or like teach them through? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you catch my
the
drift?
most
Or like,
unique thing.
yeah, or something that kind of like came up that you were like, how is this even coming up right now? Like, what is this?
Oh, I don't know what to think about that. There's
I
definitely a lot about garbage.
okay.
A
Mm.
lot of like the wind blows so much garbage into like the trails we walk by and the
Yeah.
field. And we've done, yeah, days where we like pick up garbage. And sometimes like, yeah, the questions kids ask are things like, you know what, we're just gonna leave that today.
Yeah.
That's just, yeah, not something we need to touch. Might be the
Yeah.
kind of guess the weirdest.
Yeah. I just think of like I think I might have been 7 and then I had like these tiny, those 10-cent goldfish that you buy at the I was going to say
Oh yeah,
grocery store, the pet store. They're
I
like
was
the
thinking cracker fish for some
Oh,
reason.
the 10-cent like black, they had
Real
like black
fish,
fish,
real
orange
fish.
fish, and you could buy like a few of them. They would multiply like crazy. But I think they were meant for feeding something else, but we always bought
Ah,
them as like pet fish because they were super cheap.
yeah,
Like, and then we had like a million of them in this
like
like one
ones you'd
tank.
win at the fair or something.
Yeah, like those like bags of fish.
Yeah.
My dad had bought like a bag of fish once and brought them home. We had like this ugly tank. We would just always stare at these fish. And one day the water was full of like black specks. Like the fish had like hatched and they had like a billion babies. The water, like the tank was probably like this big, and I would guess that there were probably like 100 fish like in this tank, just like tiny little fish. And my parents being kind of the same, like, it's nature, let's have
See
at
what
her. Like,
happens.
what do you want to learn and what do you want to do with it? I was insistent that I take a jar of fish to school because I just wanted to show everyone all these tiny fish, which like bad because they didn't make it, but I did get to take a jar of fish to school. So I like had this giant like old pickle jar. My mom like scooped as many fish in as she could, closed the jar, like off you go to school. And I guess in their heads as adults, they were like, they're 10-cent fish that multiplied, like,
Please get
no
them out
harm,
of
no
here.
foul. It's fine. Like they're gonna grow. We're gonna have to get rid of some anyway, but take them to school, whatever you're gonna do. And I was like the attraction of the day. Like everyone was like coming to look at the fish. Like some were big, some were small. Like some of them were see-through, some of them were black. Like, and it was just so crazy. Like I think my teacher was so annoyed because the kids couldn't focus on anything else all day. All we talked about was the fish. And that's just like one of those things. Like if you go to a pond and kids find tadpoles, all they're going to talk about is that the tadpoles and what they're learning about, what's in front of them.
That's so
We
true.
saw something really weird, actually, now that you mentioned that was stuck to a rock in the creek here. And I put a little video of it. I think it's on our Instagram or something, or Facebook, because one of my friends commented, who was in university, and gave me this like really cool scientific explanation. They're like, oh yeah, that's what this is. I was like, oh, cool. Like, thank you. Like, I don't even know how I would have researched this.
What is that? What was it?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and check. This was,
Okay.
yeah, over a year ago. But it's just really cool. It looked like some kind of millipede, but it would like stick onto the rock and
Mm-hmm.
hold on and then just like wiggle as like the current would like bring it, and it would stay on this rock. And we saw a few of them. And yeah, the kids were just like so baffled at Like usually you don't see a lot of fish or like living creatures in the creek because it's, you know, it's cold, it's shallow, and it moves fast. But yeah, that was really cool.
So it's like a bug they've never seen before.
I think so. I think it hatched into something. Maybe it hatched into a bug after it like lived in the water and then it could go in the air.
You're gonna have to let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to know like what this alien bug in Edson is.
I'm like, I gotta go find one. What season did you find it?
Yeah, when did you find
Spring
it?
and fall.
Okay.
Spring and fall. Okay, I will look.
Yeah.
And it was a river?
Yeah, just in the creek that like runs
Oh,
through
like,
town.
oh yeah, like in the
You know, it's
trail.
a full river. Yeah.
Mm,
Ah.
very cool.
Sarah, we're going on a bug hunt.
I know. Come spring,
Yeah,
I'll get my net and my rubber boots.
exactly.
Speaking of rubber boots, I know something you always, I don't want to say preach, but kind of preach, is like how to dress for outside and like the importance of it. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to dress properly when you go outside because if you go outside and you're cold or wet, you're not going to want to stay. So removing that layer of uncomfortability, I guess, is greatly important. I also don't think you need top of the line, like crazy expensive stuff, especially for little kids that grow. So yeah, I also preach a lot about thrift stores and like second hands and like mom swaps and stuff like that. Or buying things in neutral colors and reusing them with your kids. But yeah, rubber boots, hugely beneficial. I actually just got my first pair of bog boots for my daughter, so I'm really excited. I've always been hesitant because I just don't know if they're warm enough in winter. But so many moms say that you can wear them like all seasons, which is really cool. So
How are you finding them?
I haven't used them yet. They have really good winter boots, so I'm still like using those, and then I was gonna use them more for spring.
Yeah.
But I might, use them next winter and see, just because I'm curious.
I tried to buy Abby some bogs last year, but it was one of those scam websites. So like I paid for them and then they're like didn't ship them. I'm like, hey, like I didn't get like my things, like where are they? Like I didn't get a tracking number. And they're like, oh, it should be coming. Like I'm trying to contact them and then I like finally figured out it was a scam website. And like when you actually look at the websites, it's just like all misspelled and like I'm like, oh, you got me. So that was like $40 on like these toddler boots. And I'm like, I wasn't gonna buy them, but they're bogs for so cheap.
See, that's the first like red flag. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was like just a great sale. Someone tagged me in it. It was like, look at this. I'm like, okay.
That sucks.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, just the other week I was on a website that like was linked to Facebook. Like it was showing me.
It was
like,
on Facebook.
Yeah, you would like you
so
would exactly. And I clicked it and it was you know, like the workout brand for exercise bikes, like Schwinn. Schwinn, they have like exercise bikes and treadmills and ellipticals, I think. And so I went on there and it was like kind of around Boxing Day, like Christmas time, and they're like Boxing Day sale, amazing, like 90% off. And I went on the website and it's like treadmill $60 with like the 1,600 like crossed off, and I was like, as if like, but I almost like I was like, this is too good, but like
you're like, but what if?
But like, you're like, what if this is true?
Yeah. So
this is a really good deal.
Yeah,
I know. After that, like, I don't believe anything anymore.
Yeah.
I like
reputable
like read the fine print.
Actually, if anyone does want to go to Campers Village, if you give the Elements Forest School email, which is just elementsforestandnatureschool@gmail.com, they will give you it's like 10 or 15% off most items.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of a nice.
Where is that?
Campers Village is in Edmonton. They have a really awful online store, unfortunately, so you have to go in store. We also really like MEC, and they have really good warranty on all their products, so that's really good. Costco too, anything with a good warranty, because then if it's not waterproof or if it leaks or has a hole in it, at least you know that they're backing their brands. And Costco started selling kids wool socks and they're amazing. My
Oh.
kids, yeah, I like have to make them wear them. They never want to wear them. They always want to wear like thin little cheap socks. Like, no, if we're going outside, like you need good socks. And anything wool, I think, is like worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have not complained about cold feet once. Like I'll get cold feet and they're totally fine.
That's
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's good to know because I
Yeah.
find it's really hard to find good kid socks.
Yeah.
Like they're all like that cheap thin material. Like I was
Mhm.
looking for like some thick ones for Abby all around town, and I'm like I don't even know where to go.
Yeah.
So
Smart
that's
wool.
good to know.
I think Smart Wool and Darn Tough, they have warranties in their socks. Not as like beneficial for kids, but if you wear a hole in them, they'll actually like send you a brand new free pair.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
Yeah, so for adults, I mean,
yeah, I gotta
actually
write
really
that
cool.
down.
Kids probably not, but still, yeah,
That's
they're really good
darn
stuff.
tough.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and Smart Wool's good too. And I know there's like a Smart Wool store in like Banff and maybe
Mhm.
in the city, I'm not sure, but you can just bring them right in store.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I have a question about like whether if you have like forest school running and the weather's like really bad that day, like what would you consider like really bad weather that like you can't really participate in forest school during the seasons that you do run?
I do have it actually written down somewhere, like our like kind of more black and white, like we'll
Mhm.
cancel for this. But
Mhm.
usually if it's colder than like -20,
Mhm.
if it's crazy windy, like if trees might blow down because we're right in the forest, obviously that's not cool, or lightning storms. Things
So
like
like common sense, don't go
yeah,
Okay.
outside.
like if everything else in the world is getting canceled, then yeah.
But if it's raining, like no lightning, no
No.
thunder, you guys are out there.
Yeah, rain's always good. We've had hail before. And yeah, we do have the little clubhouse if we do need a bit of shelter. The kids love the hail though. I
Mhm.
couldn't believe how novel of a concept hail was.
Were they catching it?
Yeah, and like collecting it,
Yeah.
and I think they were like making it into like snow cones or something.
Oh,
That's so
that's
fun.
so cute.
Yeah.
Mhm. I find like those are things too that like a kid would be super interested in because we know like snowflakes, right? We know they're not ever the same. So then when you're actually getting like a good snowfall with like those nice fluffy snowflakes, like how much time kids can spend,
Oh yeah.
you know, collecting snowflakes on their mitts to like see if they can find a match because they like want that challenge. Like, oh, you told
Good
me
luck.
no two snowflakes are the same.
I'll find it.
Right.
Like four-leaf clovers, the amount of
Mm.
kids that like search and search. And my son always thinks he finds them.
Yeah.
Look, mom, it's four-leaf clover. I'm like, no, that's three leaves. Or like
Let's
that's
count them
not.
again.
Yeah. Like, no, mom, it
Is it
is.
is
He's
that bad that I still sit in the grass and I will still look for
I
four-leaf
do
like,
it
clovers?
no,
too.
not at all.
Okay.
I do it
Abby will
too.
be playing and I sit there and I like blow on the grass to make noise. She
Yeah.
loves it.
Aw.
I
That's
find
my
like
one
four leaf,
talent.
yeah, four leaf clovers are hard though because you
Yeah.
always find them when you're not looking. Like you're like walking and you just see one. And it's like I found two in my entire life and they were like I wasn't even looking. They were just right in front of me. And I took a picture with each one I've taken, like I found, because it's like, well, how am I ever going to find these? But I do the same thing as like your son. Was it your son that's like, I found
Yeah.
one? I will like find one that is three leaves, but like it's kind of gappy. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this one definitely had four leaves,
Yeah.
but it's like missing one or it got stunted. Like the growth of the fourth leaf is just like super tiny. You can hardly see it,
But it counts.
but it
Yeah.
counts.
Definitely.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that still looks.
No. I think those are a lot of the benefits, I would think, from a thing like something like forest school. It's just residual, like benefit to growing up, like so into your adult years, finding joy in being outside and then passing that on to your own children or just children that you work with. Um, I just feel like you say, they're in a better mood. They're just happier. Like
Mhm.
the amount of like pleasure a person gets from walking outside and like feeling the sun on them,
Mhm.
that's like uncomparable. You can't get that anywhere else, like that feeling.
Well, and I think too, like just being outside, like it brings you back to your childhood almost
Yeah.
too, right? Like how many stories did we just tell of our childhood or like past experiences, right? It just brings you back because like
Yeah.
that connection, like I don't know, it's just like it's magical.
Yeah. Emma, would you say that I'll try not to ramble too much, but would you say that like empathy in children that participate in forest school, like what would you say about their like empathy or
Oh, that's a
that?
good
Like,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, so much empathy for like bugs.
Mhm.
So much. Like
Yeah.
we would get lots of slugs in our garden,
Mhm.
and it was actually really nice. The kids would help me pick all the slugs out, and then we take little slug homes and like slug swing sets and
Oh.
slug slides. And I mean, like they're a pest. Like we don't want
Mhm.
them. But yeah, they would love them. And like there was one kid who loved worms and would carry them, and then they would die. And I remember my daughter just getting so mad. She's like, "Mom, he's killing them. Like, he needs to put them back. Like, they need to go home,
Mhm.
you know?" And yeah, she would get really worked up about it. But he just like loved them so much. Like, it wasn't purposeful. It was just like,
Yeah.
I love them. I'll carry them forever.
Yeah.
They'll live in your
Yeah.
hand. It's fine. Yeah, lots of empathy for that.
So then probably going into like school age and entering school, they're probably listen up parents a lot nicer to other children
Mhm.
and a
I
lot
hope
more
so.
understanding. Like I could see that. That would
Yeah.
definitely translate. Like I know when I was a kid I did a science project in my backyard and I cut some slugs up because I thought that they would um, multiply if I cut them. And then I was
Okay.
horrified because they all died. And I was like, why did I do that? I killed all the slugs and I had like just this like pile of dead slugs. But I thought like because someone had told me that like worms multiply if
Mm.
they
Yeah,
get split
if
in
you
half.
hit them with this shovel, like I think one half of them will still live. Slugs might not be so hardy.
So your hypothesis on this
Was wrong.
science project was wrong.
And I was like sad. Like I was really
Yeah.
sad. And it was like, okay, this works for worms. This doesn't
Mhm.
work for slugs. Like, and then I don't think I ever like touched a slug again. Like I would see slugs in my parents' garden. I'd be like, nice slug. It's okay. Like you can stay. I won't tell anyone. Shh. Like, go under the dirt. It's okay. Like I just everything in me, like even like mice, like rodents,
Mm.
like everyone's like, oh, there's mice in the field. Like if you find them, just step on them. Like they're pests and like right. And just living out of town, you're kind of like, you don't want mice. So it's like you get a mouser and you have a cat that's like catching mice for you. But then I see like my dog playing with a mouse and she's just playing like actually pretty like I think she just wants to be its friend, but she's hurting it because it's a tiny mouse.
Yeah.
And she like threw a mouse in the air the other day because she was just playing with it. And I had to go over there and like, okay, no, like leave the mouse alone, like run away. But same thing, I'm like mowing the lawn in the summertime and there was like a little shrew or something like in the grass. I could see it. I had to like stop the mower. I'm like, okay, go, run, like
Yeah.
like it just like everything in me is just like, don't hurt it, like let it live. It's like it has a job to do. Like I know it's a pest, but there's something like
There is.
that it needs to do, like feed the owls or like whatever it might be. But I
There's
just
a documentary on Netflix that goes just right into that. Like, God, I forget what it is called, but it's so good. It's about a farm and it just like maintains itself, like an
oh yeah,
ecosystem. Like,
Big Little Farm or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So
amazing.
Mhm.
Like, and
yeah.
like they were just learning everything about it too. So like that just goes back to like, yeah, like the slugs, they're a pest, but I'm sure they have a purpose. So
They
like,
do something else. Yeah,
yeah.
that documentary you're talking about is Apricot Farms is the place
Okay.
that it's like at. I follow them on Instagram ever since I saw that.
Do you?
Yeah.
I should. I need to watch it again. It was so good.
Mhm.
So good. And it's just like, yeah, it teaches you how everything has a purpose in life. And there's, if you throw one thing off balance, just how it can just ruin anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it really did. It was just so eye-opening.
Mhm. I think a lot around like nature play and forest school is eye opening. Like
Yes.
you know, I'm sure you get stories from parents, like their kids come home and tell them things they've never heard of before.
Oh yeah.
We had some cute stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's so beneficial, and I think in just so many ways. So, as I said before, I'm so excited when Abby's of age. Just lower your age to 2.
There's no age, as long as they're potty trained.
She is.
Perfect.
Yeah.
See?
For the most part. For the most part.
Yeah, if they can be potty trained for the 2-3 hours, then they're good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
First started when she honestly, she wasn't even fully potty trained. There was some frustrating days. She was like 2 or 2.5. But she killed it. She did so good. And now, like, she never complains when we go outside. She loves it. The other day, she asked if we could walk home. And I was like, no, like, I drove. She's like, okay, well, I'm just going to walk home, Mom. It's like, hey, you can't go. Yeah, like, it
just leave the car parked.
Yeah.
It's fine, Mom. We don't need it. We'll walk. It's a nice day.
We'll walk back and get it after.
Yeah.
I guess we could have done that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, double walk.
Yeah.
Depends how far you were. I don't know if I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
All the backpacks and just like everything.
Yeah. That's when you throw them in the vehicle. We'll get them later.
Exactly.
That's so nice.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Emma, do you think you could maybe like repeat where people could find you, like all over Facebook,
yes,
Instagram,
good call.
wherever you are?
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram, Elements Forest School. And yeah, if you have questions, you can message me there. The email elementsforestandnatureschool@gmail.com. And then I guess we'll be starting up NaturePlay April.
Yes. So we do a program together, NaturePlay, that Emma runs, and so it's a great way to try it out to see if that's something that you think your child would enjoy, and you get to do it too.
Ooh.
As a parent.
Oh, I know. Okay.
So you don't drop them off. Yeah. The parents actually have to be there and be involved, which I think is really fun.
That's super neat.
So, yeah.
It's an awesome program. It's been nice partnering up with you guys for that.
Yeah, it's really nice. You need something for nature, and like to get the parents involved too, to get like to know what their child's doing when they are in nature, and to see like you and how you teach them and stuff. I think is just so awesome. So
it's definitely that buy-in for parents for sure.
Yeah. To understand.
Thank you so much, Emma.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I love talking about it.
Yeah.
About nature and learning more.
I feel like we all should go and watch all those documentaries that we talked about, come back, and then do like a, what do we think?
A review.
Yeah. We'll review documentary. I'll try and find them too, and I'll link them when this goes up so that everyone else can kind of like see how other parts of the world are doing forest school and what it looks like if they've like never seen it before too. And then
I've seen some pretty cool ones too.
Yeah, I'll link your stuff so they can know where to find you, and if they have questions and want to throw their kids into the wild to learn about everything they won't learn in just regular old school. So yeah. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.